Good morning, good afternoon, good evening across the continent of Africa. In Europe, good morning. In Ghana, good morning. From Ghana, across in the West African Atlantic Ocean shores, we greet you with many, many greetings from the people of West Africa, the Pan-African home of Kwame Nkrumah, the one that brought about the Pan-African zeal, the angle of defending Africa. Our continent today is faced with a huge problem caused by traits of colonial hangover and traits of supplied, equipped logistically by foreign agencies. Many of the African countries stand on cliffhanger politics, as it has been the case, that nobody has ever wanted us to unite. On this show, Matsanga Africa Perspective, this podcast, which I do every day on each country in Africa. Today, I am looking at Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, a country that I have defended since 1998, when sanctions were, when Zimbabwe was isolated by the then Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Tony Blair. Zimbabwe got independence in 1980 after a bitter, bloody struggle against the unilateral declaration of independence by Ian Smith, and proceeded to govern itself as an independent state under the Lancaster Agreement of 1980 that was hammered in London. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking from no notes because I know this country in and out. I've spent half of my, or quarter of my age, over 20 years of my age, actually 24, struggling to defend this great nation of Africa called Zimbabwe. I am not a Zimbabwean. I am a Pan-African, a global citizen who defends any country in Africa which is being labeled, isolated, discriminated, profiled by Western Hemisphere or any other sources that want to destabilize it. I have been at the forefront telling the people of Africa and the people of Zimbabwe since 1998, when we differed with Tony Blair about Zimbabwe. I have stood firm. I've stood firm, steadfast, continue to do my work, irrespective of the threats that I've received both from the then government of Tony Blair, where I lost my work. I have remained steadfast as a Labour Party member, voting in all these years. Since 1998, I became a member of the Labour Party in 1989. Up to today, I'm a member of the Labour Party, but a party that believes in the United Kingdom, that we should do better for Africa. When Prime Minister Tony Blair arrived, we won an election in 1998. We disagreed on the principle And you will find this documented in my book, which apparently some Zimbabweans don't want to see, don't want to read, don't want to know history. Some younger generations in Zimbabwe are not seeing the history of what happened to their country. We did disagree with Tony Blair on the modus operandi on how to handle late President Mugabe. In the Labour conference in Brighton, I disagreed openly, publicly, among the delegates conference in hundreds of thousands, over 20,000 delegates seated. 3/4 of the hall went in an uproar when I told Tony Blair to engage President Mugabe instead of dismantling the economy, the state, isolation, sanctions on this great nation, Zimbabwe. I am glad to hear, and I'm glad to be here today, that history has exonerated me. That the words that I used in 1998 when Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister Tony Blair wanted to isolate Zimbabwe together with Claire Short and Baroness Scotland, who were part and parcel of the regime, plus Peter Haynes, Kate Hoyes, who were part and parcel of the regime that pressurized Prime Minister Tony Blair to isolate Zimbabwe, to hammer sanctions on the people of Zimbabwe and the government of Zimbabwe. Today, some of them are still alive. They will watch this video and remember my words. I told them, there is no sanction in the world, in the third world, that can remove a government. Sanctions only bite civilians, citizens of those countries. Even if you are targeting their leaders, sanctions will bite the citizens. I was right. I was right in the sense that people thought I was a madman. At that time, I'm telling this story so that people can understand why a Ugandan has defended this nation. It's not paid mercenary. I've never been paid in a single coin for defending of this country. I've never signed a contract with anybody in Zimbabwe to defend the country called Zimbabwe. I simply did a Pan-African job by coming out to defend this nation. Matters escalated from 1998 after the land redistribution program, a skewed policy that was there before, where 4,000 commercial farmers occupied 80% of arable land in rainfall areas A, B, C, and left the black 14 by 10 million Zimbabweans black in areas that are inhabited mainly by animals, and in the rock areas, forests, near the bad area where the terrain was not worth farming. 4,000 white commercial farmers, and let me be very specific, white commercial farmers occupied 80% of the arable land of Zimbabwe. For those younger people, for those who, the Chamisas and the rest of those who don't know, from 1980 to 1995, there were clauses in the Lancaster Agreement Constitution that nobody should touch that constitution until and after 15 years. Therefore, there was nobody, no way the government of Zimbabwe at that time of Robert Mugabe could have actually dismantled the agreement that was hammered in the Lancaster House, signed, witnessed by international agencies, that no comma, no full stop, no addition statement could be added on the Lancaster Agreement Constitution. The constitution was very clear that a willing buyer, a willing seller would be compensated by the British government. And as you know, Margaret Thatcher was one of the key architects of the constitution of the Lancaster Agreement that was signed between Ian Smith, Robert Mugabe, and others in the Lancaster House. Most of us were grown-ups. We watched some of these ceremonies from our capital cities in Africa, and we said, hallelujah, thank you very much. We wanted Zimbabwe to be liberated. We wanted Zimbabwe to be free. We wanted Zimbabwe to act so that we can remain with one other animal called apartheid in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, the story therefore goes, and it continues to go. I tell this story so that the students of International Relations and African Affairs in universities of London School of Economics, Cambridge, Oxford, Metropolitan University today, which was my university, Canterbury University, the favorite of mine, and the Cambridge, Liverpool University, Manchester, Makerere University, those in Nairobi University, those in Ghana University, the University of Ghana, all these universities, Lagos, Ibadan, across Africa, University of in South Africa, in Harare itself, the students can pick up this history and see where their country came from and how their country has battled imperialism since 1980. The theater changed. When Tony Blair took over power, the Labour government changed all the rules of play as it is in the Western Hemisphere. I would like to warn people in Africa who deal with countries in the West. Their countries change governments every 5 years and every 4 years. The United States of America changes governments every 4 years. It changes. Trump changes to Biden. Biden will be taken out by the voters. The confusion that you see in America today is as a result of the sharp differences that have come because of the political acuteness of political systems, of presidential style of governance. As a political scientist myself, I would have loved, and I would love Africa to look at their political systems. What is causing problem? What is causing problem in Africa today is the type of systems that we have, the type of democratic systems. The parliamentary system would serve better for Africa, for me, than the presidential system of America that sharpens and divides the people of Africa. You are looking for choosing a president. We have not reached that level yet. Ugandans have not reached a level of tolerance. Let me speak of my own country. We have not reached over the level of tolerance that when President Museveni wins, we say, okay, fine, you have won, thank you very much. We wait for 5 years. We haven't reached there. And we have to be very frank and tell ourselves we are in chaos. If we follow the presidential style of system of elections in Africa, almost every African country will be in chaos, apart from South Africa, Tanzania, Ghana, Liberia, and another state that has just changed the government without any quarrel. Tanzania's situation is even more organized, that you can petition the court on parliamentary issues, but you cannot petition the court on presidential issues. The percentage of presidential vote, the highest percentage takes the presidency for 5 years. Tanzania has maintained peace. Most of the countries in East Africa and Central Africa and Africa as a whole have opted for a presidential system, which is an American system, which is very violent. It's a violent system. America has no democracy. is purely money and violence. You have nothing to compare with the type of African way of consensus, of dealing with politics. That's why you see Chamisa in Zimbabwe is still complaining about 2018 elections. He's still complaining when there is an election coming again and another one has passed. We have people who sharpen for presidency. Can Africa look at my words? Remember me. Always remember me. In a song by Lucky Dube, he said, remember me, my father. Oh, Father, remember me. Wherever I will be, remember my words. If you continue with the presidential style of governance on African continent, you are going to fight and kill each other until the chickens come home to roost. Change your method. Look at South Africa. They're in parliament. They are fighting on the floor of the parliament. There's no South African banning any problem, anybody. There's no South African shooting any tear gas. Ladies and gentlemen, Africans, wake up and go and change this governance. State of governance in Africa of presidential style of America, which is based on violence and the money, will kill Africa. Nigeria, where is it? It's hollow, it's gone. I was doing a few clips a few days ago. If you think I'm wrong, call Angel Gabriel to touch my hand. Part of the problem of Zimbabwe is the presidential style of governance. A number of, if ZANU-PF can sweep the seats, it can form a government. You don't need that sharpening of a presidential style of governance that two people come up competing for presidency. No, let president be selected by parliament, that even members of parliament in the Zimbabwe parliament, some who are in opposition, who love Mnangagwa, will give him a vote. And there will be what we call a redemption strategy. Done, sealed. No quarrel in the parliament. Most of the countries in Africa are not quarreling in the parliament. They are quarreling on the streets. Because people have misled them. People who did little political science and remain in school compounds have gone to advise people that we can do better with an American style. We better tell the Americans the truth. Your politics is violent. You shoot people. You kill people. Americans have guns. We Africans don't have that culture of picking guns to kill people. That type of democracy must be condemned. And when you look at my Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe that I've defended, you have followed the wrong system that keeps on breeding more violence every time, fighting from time of Changarai, time of Mutambara, time of Walter, whoever, Muzembe, time of Jonathan Moyo. I think Professor Jonathan Moyo, when you get this, I know you're a very good writer. You write very well. You have published books. I want you to look at this system of American style. Professor Jonathan Moyo, I invite you, I preach peace. I know we have not been talking for many years because of the things that you did and of which you have apologized to me. If you have not apologized, you will one day. But you can see exactly what I used to tell you. This is exactly where we are. We are following a wrong system of American violent system of democracy, or presidential style, where we have two people earmarked coming up to go and fight for presidency. South Africa voted. They finished. ANC lost majority. But ANC went back, and the people in the parliament selected a president. Some people in EEF voted for Ramaphosa. It is normal. You heal the parliamentary system. We recently in Britain, before flying to Accra, I voted for Keir Starmer, the Labour Party, in my Croydon West constituency, for my MP Sarah Jones voted proudly and they gave the vote. She's one of the few ministers in that government. Today, there was nobody looking for Rishi Sunak, a man who wanted to touch refugees. You see, a life of a refugee, I want to warn some people. If you have not been a refugee, never touch a refugee. Never molest a refugee, like Dr. Matsanga. Don't molest him. Don't molest a refugee. I'm warning some people. A refugee who has escaped persecution, has been blessed by God from nowhere to become with these full colors, titles, documents, papers, degrees. Never play with such a person. If you look at most of the people leading Africa, most of them were refugees. From Ramaphosa, Mnangagwa, Kagame, Museveni, all of them. Look at them, count them. Tunubu, Ado, Nana, my president here in Ghana. All of them were refugees. Don't touch them and don't harass them ever, because the blood comes back to haunt you. I am just simply saying there is something wrong with our systems in Africa. They breed violence than peace. A presidential system of American style is very dangerous in Africa because we are not able, we have not reached a level of tolerance. An opposition in Africa is called an enemy. In Zimbabwe, an opposition is called an enemy. Anybody in opposition is an enemy. Yes, and anybody in the government is an enemy. The opposition calls the government the enemy. The government calls opposition enemy because of politics of presidential style. Look at what has happened in Zimbabwe today. Look at what has happened. Paralyzed. It has done so well. It reached the point of an opposition leader running away, abandoning the party. The history littered by sanctions, from land reform to sanctions. Sanctions started biting. Sanctions, whether targeted or overall, they all hurt the masses. A minister in Zimbabwe goes to World Health Organization. If he's not going to World Health Organization, how will the minister then conduct policies that will help hospitals in Zimbabwe? You have targeted the minister not to go out. Sanctions, whatever form they are, sanctions kill the country. Whether you have targeted Mnangagwa, Chiwenga, and the wife and the children not to go, you are targeting a state. Who forms the policies is His Excellency Emerson Mnangagwa forms the policies, direction of the country. If you target him, you think you are targeting, punishing him, you are punishing a state. And I don't like to hear some myopic reasoning that if the president is the only one targeted, then the sanctions have been removed. That's stupid. That's very silly reasoning of the highest degree that I have never gone to school to study that. A head of state is the man who directs everything in the state. You can't remove these banks to operate. Then you tell the owners of all banks who manages the policy, the economic, the policy, the fiscal policy, all comes to the president who directs the country and tell him you're under sanctions, but the rest of these people are all right. No, not Dr. Matsanga, over my dead body. Anybody thinking like that is myopic, has not gone to school, or he went to school and cheated papers, or he did not go inside the classroom. Yes, you can have good English talk, but you don't have the knowledge of politics. You can't tell me you have removed all sanctions on Zimbabwe, except Mnangagwa and Chiwenga. and their families. Yet Chiwenga and Mnangagwa are the ones leading the country. You can't leave sanctions on those two people. And their minister of foreign affairs who moves around talking. What are you talking? What are you telling me? You cannot punish people. Who has punished Americans? Who has sanctioned Americans? They are killing each other. You see the type of bullets that are walking around on their platforms when they're campaigning. Is there anybody who has shot a president in Zimbabwe while he's campaigning? What type of these people who come to put sanctions on us? Who are they? These are the kind of people shooting each other. We have imported a very violent system into our systems in Africa. We are teaching our younger generation bad manners of violence, of coming to beat us, the elders, as we go towards God. It is not the way we should work in Africa. If Nkrumah told you, if Nyerere told you, if Obote told you, if Jomo Kenyatta told you, Mugabe said it, we did not listen. Listen to me, who was left there to tell you. Don't tell me that you have removed the sanctions on Zimbabwe, this or that. You go around telling people, writing. No, that's rubbish. You remove sanctions from the president of Zimbabwe. Let him go and participate. If you don't want him, fine. Let him represent his country. Let Chiwenga go wherever he wants to go. Let Mnangagwa go wherever they want to go. You can't foolishly tell me you have removed the sanctions against the banks, against the economy, and then you allow the people who run the economy, who command the economy, who command the foreign policy of Zimbabwe, who commands the foreign policy of Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa. Then you put sanctions on him. Rubbish. I am not going to take that. I've told my people of Zimbabwe, you're a state. I can help you for free again, as I have been doing. Emerson, as you get this tape, my editor, you have been my friend for 24 years. And I will continue to be friendly. I did not buy our friendship. There might be some people who have misunderstood me and they used my name to come to you to say they are doing this, they are doing that for me. No, I don't have anything that I have ever got from anyone regarding Zimbabwe. I am free. My hands are clean, and I stand for this nation on pro bono basis. I want to advise you, and I want to call upon General Chiwenga. Listen to me, you people. Chiwenga is slightly younger than me itself. You are older than me. Let's take this matter higher. Why was Zimbabwe put on sanction list? Why were you put on sanction list? You are human beings. Let's go to International Court of Justice. Let's table. Let Zimbabwe tell us. Let America tell you why they have pinned you out and put you on sanction list. We can let the court interpret. We have very good judges there. We have a very good Ugandan judge. Yes. Judges there, very good people. They reason. They don't reason like the stupid ICC, Karim Khan and others. Let's take these guys on. Why should America, with violent type of democracy, come to dictate on African states that even run and vote without shooting their contenders on the platform, on a podium? Someone goes to hire some people and they shoot a person. We don't do that in Africa. Zimbabwe doesn't do that.